All right, Jeff, let's talk some football and the importance of supporting retired football players with Eagles great Mike Golic. Mike, welcome back to the show today.
Glad to be back. How y'all doing?
We're good. Look, you know all about this. It's Eagles Dallas week here. Fans loved watching your buddy Ryan defenses beat up on Dallas. Before we get to supporting retired players and Pork Rinds, any memories stand out from you of games against the Cowboys at the Vet or in Dallas?
It's almost like which didn't. So many great games. Forgot what year it was. We started out the year both 4-0, played on Monday night. Obviously, the everybody remembers the Bounty Bowl. The Thanksgiving games. It was just a different week. We always said it was Cowboy week, so practice took on a bit of a different feel. Buddy Ryan and Jimmy Johnson. We're not singing Kumbaya together. There was not a love loss there, and it kind of bled over onto the field. We had some great matchups with them. Unfortunately for us, they were able to close out a couple of Super Bowls when we were all together in Philly in '92 and '93, and we weren't able to do that. So at the end, I know they got the better of it. We certainly got the better in some of the games, but always a physical, hard-fought game.
As somebody who played a physical, hard-fought version of football, who was in the Bounty Bowl, who played in the body bag game, do you have any thoughts on how the league can find a balance between protecting the players and what is going on now with the quarterbacks and the penalties that are being called?
Well, between quarterbacks, which are, the stars of the league and the moneymakers, and a reason, as a former D lineman, it's always hard to admit, people will tune in for the most part anyway, but having a big name, big time quarterback helps. And I think then we've learned a lot about head injuries. When I was playing, if you got stung in the head a little bit and they said how many fingers you got up. If you got close, you went back in the game. And I'm not kidding. That's kind of how it went. It was just kind of considered a headache. But like anything else, you become smarter, about things. And we got more information about head injuries and the effects of them. And remember, the league got sued and lost a lawsuit for about $700-800 million to players for hiding some of the information. So they're going to definitely err on the side of caution, which they should. My issue is that it can cost you. I get the safety part of it, but some of those roughing the quarterback calls were absolutely ridiculous. And remember, we get to see them in replay. So they look even more egregious to us than in real time that the refs see. But the refs are told err on the side of safety, and they're going to throw the flag. So until the competition, the rules aren't going to change. What's going to happen is between the competition committee and the league, they're going to have to tell the referees, okay, let's not throw the flag so quickly, because that's what the refs are doing. The refs are following the league's orders, because remember, the refs get graded as well. The refs just can't take it upon themselves to say, well, I'm not going to throw a flag on that anymore if it looks like the quarterback was rough, because we're getting graded on this. The league needs to, like every year, the league tells the refs, we have a point of emphasis, and they need to say, listen, some of the plays you're seeing, we're just not going to call them roughing the passer anymore because they're ridiculous, and it can change the outcome of a game. You can be off the field, all of a sudden you got a first down. You could be Kansas City, and all of a sudden you could be off the field, and the Raiders keep the ball, and they kick a field goal, and it costs you 3 points. So it could be very detrimental. So while I get the erring on the side at times, to me, they go too far with it.
How hard is it for a defender when you're in that moment, to both hear that the play is dead at that point to stop so you don't get the penalty? I can't imagine how difficult that is.
Well, the hardest was years ago when they started changing the rules, especially the hitting of what they called then the defenseless receiver. Because understand, defensive backs that were in the league before that, they didn't have those rules. So they were smoking everybody. So now all of a sudden in one off season, they're told to change, which is difficult because they just weren't doing that in the NFL. That means they were doing it in college. They were doing it in high school because you were allowed to do it. Then all of a sudden they were asked to change the way they did it. Very hard to do when it's ingrained in you a certain way to do it. Now, the next generation of players that come through will know these rules, and we know there can't be any more of those real intimidating hits over the middle. Now you see a hard hit and the refs throw a flag for safety. Again, I think a little too much, but this is what they're instructed to do. So while there are those that say, oh, the players are softer, I don't know if that's necessarily true, but the rules have made the game not as violent, which, again, I go back to the last question, can be a good thing, but when they go too far with it, I can see how people get a bit disgusted with it, especially a defensive player. I mean, you land on a quarterback and put your hands out so your full body weight doesn't land on him, and they still throw the flag. You're going, what the hell am I supposed to do? How do you want me to tackle this guy without getting 15 yards?
You know, the point of these rules is safety, to make the game safer for the players that play it. But at the time you played and before that, players didn't have the benefit of this, which is why we're having you on, and this is why we talk to you guys every year. Can you tell us a little bit about Gridiron Greats, what its mission is, and what Pork Rind Appreciation Day is all about?
Well, Gridiron Greats, I've been on the board for a few years now, something Mike Ditka helped start years ago. And, you know, the one thing about players that came before, we always talk about that, and players that came just decades and decades ago, you know, they just don't have some of the things that the players of today have out of the CBA when you retire. You know, they're not making the amount of the pension and severance and everything that those players have made, nor the money. So there are guys that financially are not in great shape, but their bodies are in worse shape. So they need some help. And what Gridiron Greats does, I equate it this way: is when I was a player, if my teammate was knocked down, I put a hand down to help him up. If I was knocked down, somebody helped me up. That's basically what we're doing. We're sick of putting our hand down, and we want to help up those players that are struggling with their mortgage. Maybe, you know, need to see the dentist, need a checkup at the doctor, things like that, and larger things as well. But sometimes everyday things can add up. So that's what Gridiron Greats is there for, to help those players. And, you know, Southern Recipe Small Batch, you know, the Pork Rind Appreciation Day, 14th year in a row. I mean, they've been involved. They are incredible. And the Pork Rind Appreciation Day is on Super Bowl Sunday. So what they're doing is they're trading sacks for snacks. So if you go to porkrindappreciationday.com, you can enter by picking any team you believe is going to get sacks. You can each week they're going to randomly select a winner, and they win a case of pork rinds for every sack their team gets. A grand prize of $5,000 a year in pork rinds, and money is going to go to the Gridiron Greats to help these former players. So, you know, that's what we look for is for help from places, and Southern Recipe Small Batch has been fantastic to help us raise money for that and to help these former players. Guys that play now and then retire have it a little, certainly a lot better than guys who played, you know, in the 40s and 50s and earlier, and really 60s, 70s. And when I played in the 80s, there are some guys living in some tough times that we just want to help out.
Well, the Eagles D-line is doing their best to get some snacks for sacks. They had 9 sacks in the Washington game. While we let you go, tell us what you've seen out of this 5-0 team, the last undefeated team in the NFL this year.
Well, I see they and Buffalo Bills as basically the two most balanced teams in the NFL. You know, from the passing game to the running game to the defense, they're all incorporating. You know, the Eagles always have a good running game. Jalen Hurts helps that. But bringing in A.J. Brown helps open up Devontae Smith even more. And so those two can play off one another. The O-line staying healthy. I know they started to get nicked a little bit last week, but they've had 4 or 5 linemen start all the games this year. You know, that's something to keep an eye on because that's an issue for them the last few years, occasionally getting nicked. But the defense, you know, at all levels, and especially that pass rush, getting after it. So that, to me, has been the biggest thing about this team, has been their balance offensively and defensively. I think they're playing as the best team in the NFC right now because of that.
All right, before we let you go, last question. Eagles are bringing back Kelly Green next year. How excited are you?
Oh, I think that's awesome. I mean, I'm going to have so many deja vu moments. You know, the one deja vu moment I won't have is when I see number 90 in that Kelly Green, because Jordan Davis is already a better player than I was, you know, when I was with the Eagles. So, but it'll be great to see Kelly Green out there again. Really, it really will.
Well, Jeff is tired of me railing on the need to bring back Kelly Green, so I will be excited to have to stop complaining about that. Mike Golic, it is great what you are doing to support Gridiron Greats, the NFL players who made this league great, and thanks for giving us some time to talk about it all.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.